Peace, family. So I'm back with another one. Today what I want to do is I wanted to talk to my chosen ones about how they thought you needed them. They thought we needed them. They felt as though they were the light being in that powerful, energetic force that was pushing us to be in the spaces that we got to today. When we all know we've been fighting this battle long before we've encountered them. They just happen to be another part of our journey, part of our another one of our chapters that we're going through. But for a lot of these beings out here that's using the wrong playbook, in their world, they feel as though they are the best thing smoking. And even if they're not the best thing smoking and they understand these things, they're comfortable with lying and projecting as if they're the best thing smoking. See, it really becomes a little difficult with understanding this concept until you have enough of these encounters and you actually allow time to pass. When the time passes, for them, their process is, okay, they're living their lives, right? They're doing whatever it is that they do. But they know they already established a spiritual tie with you. So with them understanding this, because we do it, everything happens on both sides of the spectrums. So you always gonna have the more righteous side of things and then the demonic witchy side. So we do establish healthy spiritual ties, but they do it from an unhealthy standpoint. But when you can master your energy and motion, you can have things in place that you are actually working on in real life time. You know, whether it's working on some of your problematic areas within yourself, whether you are like restructuring how you discipline yourself. Discipline should be number one on everybody's to-do list. If you have a to-do list, discipline should be in the top 2, top 3. For me, discipline is number 1 because it allows me to be able to master my energy and motion and effectively project the energy that I would like to project without it being solely infiltrated by the outside realm. Meaning that what's happening outside of me doesn't take over a 50% effectiveness with how I maneuver my vibration around out here. A lot of people out here are dictated by the outside environment. We do have to move accordingly to how our environment is set up, but it shouldn't dictate. And what I mean by that is saying, like, if you're in a house full of witches, that doesn't mean that you have to be a witch because you're in a house full of witches. You just have to learn how they move around so you can know how to move around outside of that. But a lot of these beings feel as though we need them because they understand that they've been able to emotionally manipulate people with sympathy. That is huge on their scale. You know, if they can always make it seem like everybody outside of them is the bad guy. Over here, we do address and acknowledge the opposition, the enemy's tactics and things that they tend to utilize against us. But that's not the sole focus. That's not the sole focus. When I'm playing chess, I focus more on my moves, but I put a percentage of it on their moves and their counter moves. But it's gonna be leaning 60-40. Depending on the opposition that you're facing, it might be reverse. You might focus on what they're doing more at 60% and then your moves 40%. And usually if I perceive things that way, my 40% is going to be extremely accurate because it's going to be a counter to the moves that they're making because I'm more focused on their moves at a 60%. You know what I mean? These beings have done so much weird stuff to us and to people in life in general. That's what we always gotta remember, is that they didn't just start these witchy tactics with us. The way they've been walking and operating, they've been doing this long before we was in the picture. And when you start to understand this battle, you start to learn and know that they've been being programmed this way for a really long time, an extremely long time. It gets difficult because they try to utilize your empathy, the way you care, the way you show your love against you. They try to utilize how you forgive yourself against them, against you. See, you can forgive yourself without having to be apologetic to the other being for you allowing yourself to be in a situation to where they were able to do these things to you. You always apologize to yourself first. Always, always, always. Running around and having to engage, you don't have to engage, but some of them are in close proximity of you. Some of them have access to you still, which you still haven't removed. So it's around the same field. So when they still have this access to you, they're banking on you coming back. If you was in a situation where, you know, this person was paying all the bills and you finally separate, they're going to assume you're going to hit some financial rut and then you're going to come running back to them. They'll open the door for you, but it's going to resort back to the same tactics. The time span as far as when they go back to these tactics just depends on your relationship. Some beings only give you 3-4 days and they right back in the same tactics. Some people may give you 2-3 months and then they right back in the same tactics. But what I realized with a lot of these witches who have been following that playbook for a really long time, it's extremely difficult for them to have at least 7 days of projecting a peaceful vibration. It's hard to project the peaceful vibration when you cannot allow yourself to be in a peaceful state from within. Every time I have to cycle around, move around, they reach out, they pop up, they pop back, any of these things, I always got my alerts on, and I always keep in the back of my mind, in my spiritual realm, in my memory bank, in my file cabinet, I always remember whatever action that they took that held the most weight. So let's say I was with somebody for 2 years, you know what I mean? All the little stuff, I can brush past the little stuff. The little stuff will get cleaned up throughout time. Time will slowly sweep away the little stuff. But when you got the bigger things that's happening or that has happened to you due to your lack of awareness, or, you know, you just allowing the situation to transpire. Sometimes we just allow things to happen so that way we have more power and more momentum when we decide to make our decisions. Some people will look at that and be like, oh, that's stupid, that's crazy, but we here experiencing life, and for some of us, we genuinely, truly are highly empathetic beings. So even when people do you dirty, it's still kind of hard for you to get over that hump and just completely, you know, remove them all the way, especially if you got some kind of spiritual bond or spiritual tie with them, whether friends, spousals, family, you know. We all understand that once you go back, because they're banking on you coming back. They're banking on you falling down into a hole. They're banking on you going into a rut. They're banking on you tapping out and giving up. These are all the things that cross their space because these are the kind of beings that they are. See, when you don't live in the same space as them, you don't process the exact same way as them. But when you've been walking this way of life for a long time, you learn how to change systems. So let's say when I'm in the house, I'm using a laptop. Bigger motor, hard drive, the processor is faster. When I'm out the house, I'm using the cell phone. I will correlate these two. When I'm inside using the bigger processor that allows me to do more, that's more connected with my natural flow. That's source. When I'm using my phone for bit spurts and at a time, that's when I'm into the other system, and I could say that that's the witchy system. We can do these things. You don't have to live by a phone to understand the phone. A lot of people have a hard time with this. They feel as though when you start acknowledging these things, like when you start acknowledging these things, it's always a flip coin. If you live in that space of acknowledging it and you constantly putting out that vibration, you're right. Bad or negative things will happen to you. But when your intentions when you utilize that vibration and your intentions are more pure and more righteous, more connected with source, you don't have to worry about any kind of weird witchy stuff coming back happening to you, because you're not living in that vibration. You only using this vibration, this frequency, in order to teach and to reach. It's completely different. Completely different. But I say that to say you have to understand their playbook in order for you to create a better, peaceful environment, especially if they are around or y'all occupy the same space. If you occupy in the same space as them, you're gonna have to figure out a method. Figuring out methods requires learning their playbook, understanding natural law and what you're actually supposed to be following and going by. And a lot of people get confused when it comes to natural law and feel because we humans, we can twist it any way that we can. Just because we can don't mean we should. Just because I can go swipe left on somebody, meaning take them out, send them on their next journey, don't mean that we should. A bunch of people done thought about hurting people to the extreme in that manner but haven't taken action. So just because we can do things don't mean that we should do things. And that's why I was saying earlier how discipline should be in the top 3 things on your list. Discipline. I don't care if you disciplining from what you put in your mouth. I don't care if you disciplining from the time you wake up. It don't even matter if you disciplining just from removing a certain item or object, or limiting yourself how long you are on any of this technology. All of these things will help the next area. The better you get at discipline in this area, the easier it is for you to manage your energy and motion when they hit you with the lingering hoover and they're expecting you to double back around to them. I've seen people out in public who we clearly had a bad falling out. Not really bad, right? When I think of bad, I think of like the worst shit possible. I shouldn't have said bad. We had an unhealthy falling out. And it was not the best energy connected to that being anymore. But when I seen them out, they had this, oh, hey. You know how people get all bubbly, big smiley when they see you. But to me, I always assume that, oh, you didn't forget what transpired previously, but now you're presenting yourself as if this is our first time again. Not anything wrong with being excited or showing that, oh, you're kind of glad to see somebody run into them. What happens is usually 10 times out of 10, the reason why y'all separated, a lot of things didn't get addressed. A lot of things were not solved. So now just a bunch of time passed and you run into these beings and they're assuming that you're going to give that same energy that you used to give because time has passed, and they assume that, okay, well, they can't be mad anymore. They cannot be frustrated anymore. They're going to assume that all these things are taking place and transpiring. We never turn our alert system off, our alarm systems. We have to keep that airtight at all times. We already understand the ones who's going to try to cause the most damage are the ones closest to us. The ones who are going to watch us self-sabotage are going to be the ones closest to us. Not saying people outside of you won't watch you self-sabotage. They won't jump in because it's not none of their business. But we all know that this war has been ramping up. So now a lot of their tactics have been getting exposed. So now the next thing that they're working on doing is allowing you to self-sabotage. So if they sabotaged you in the beginning, if you go for the double back, they may create the environment and the illusion for you to self-sabotage yourself. They know that you've been struggling getting up every day, but they're gonna make sure that they stay in the bed every day. They know that you may want a phone call at a certain time. They're gonna make sure that you don't receive that phone. It's gonna be a bunch of little things happening and transpiring, which is why I say, like, a lot of these beings, they look for us to double back. One, because they really love our light and the vibration that we gave off. Two, they knew they wasn't gonna run into another one of us right away. It doesn't happen. You can find another physical vessel to replace me, but you ain't gonna find another vibration like this in this proximity to replace me. That's not gonna happen, because there's not a lot of people out here moving with Source and the Creator. A lot of people are just scurrying along. It's literally zombie land out here, you know? And not saying that they doing it with ill intentions, because everyone do not have ill intentions that's following this demonic playbook. Everyone does not have ill intentions that's following the demonic playbook on the lower level. But on the higher level, they all got ill intentions because they're not getting right with the Creator and natural law. They aren't doing things that they could be doing because they are consumed by their role. Their role here was to follow. They just picked the wrong beings, the wrong entities, deities to follow. You know what I mean? It's hard to be in our presence, have things go south or not the way they want them to go, and then have to go out and engage with new beings again because they do not find vibrations like us. Those are turning points. If these beings was running into beings like us and this is what they sought out, why wouldn't their tactics be different? Why wouldn't it be smoother for them to manipulate us? Why wouldn't it be easier for them to distract us? It doesn't. It becomes more harder and more difficult and more challenging, because the ones previously that they've been running may have been highly empathetic, but you can be highly empathetic and not follow a natural law or connected with Source. We see it all the time out here, you know what I mean? You cannot fall for the double back depending on your circumstances and situations with that person, place, or thing. If it wasn't that bad and you just had some things that you was working on, that's a little different on the double back. Them expecting you back, because you already knew that you had some stuff that you was crafting up within. You knew that you had some areas that you needed to fix and that you needed to heal. But the thing, the way I feel about all of that is, you can look at other worlds, other countries, other spaces out here in this universe. Relationships always exist. From people being homeless and still being in relationships, to people being in slavery, slaves being in relationships. Hell, you can go to the justice system, which they call justice. It don't be justice. I just call it the penal or prison system. It's still people over there still trying to create relationships. You know what I mean? But when you out here in the real world and you have these many options and choices, we feel as though we don't need relationships. We do. And you can look all around the world and see that it's constantly happening. You know, they just have us in a space over here making it seem like, oh, you can't afford a relationship, you can't afford no children, you cannot afford your life. The Creator is always going to supply everything we need when we need it. It's just how hard are you willing to fight this battle? How solid are you willing to stand, you know, amongst the majority, basically? You know what I mean? It's all going to be a battle. It's all part of the process until this shift fully happens. This is part of the flow for us. You know what I mean? But I didn't want to run it up too long. Be mindful of the double backs. They will do certain things to try to entice you to come back. Some of them, their pride will be too much in the way to say, hey, could we work something out? Hey, can we get back? You got to pay attention to the signs. How much are they checking out your stories? How much are they messaging you? How much are they randomly pulling up? How much are they crossing through your inner space? You gotta keep all these things in mind, you know what I mean? But tap in everything down below. Peace and love to the kings and queens.